Okay, my voice went away. Hi, everybody. This is Joanne Eisen with Reach the Unlimited. And you all asked, and I am delivering. You wanted me to do some lives alone and not always have a guest with me. So that's what today is about, questions and answers. If you guys have anything you want to talk about and you're here, just reach out and put it in the chat, and I will answer it as best that I can. But as I'm waiting and before I start, I actually got, and it's up, I'm going to have it displayed now, 3 books. Yay. Got my books today or yesterday, last night. I'm very excited. 365 Days of Self-Love. There's 58 amazing authors in this book. It's very, very beautiful. It's just such a beautiful book. Look how thick it is. It's very thick. I mean, you can use it as like a oracle, whatever you need to work on that day or whatever you need to think about that day, which is amazing. And it just has like different story or antidote or whatever you can imagine to help you to think of self-love, because self-love is really, really important. It's funny because I posted something in the Facebook group yesterday about self-love, and it was about the most important thing about self-love is loving yourself. Yet it's the first thing that we tend not to do is love ourselves. We're very hard on ourselves. We tend to over criticize ourselves, um, beat ourselves up. I don't know if you guys do that, but I can do all of that. And so one of the people that after what I posted said, but that's the hardest thing to do when you do something wrong, is to have compassion and self-love for yourself. Hi, Jacqueline. And it is sometimes hard. If we do something that's really bad, we can tend to beat ourselves up. But what does that ever accomplish? I know for me, for years, I beat myself up over certain things that I had done, because we're human and we're all going to do something that's going to hurt somebody else because we're human. And it's not an excuse that we're human and that we can beat people up or say bad things to people or do mean things to people. It's not an excuse, but it is a part of our human existence. It's a part of our experience that we are going to make mistakes. And, sometimes we really think we're doing the best. We think that this is the right thing to do. And we find out later that it's not the right thing to do. But we didn't have any bad intentions in the beginning. It's what we actually believed would be the best thing. And then we find out later that somebody got hurt from that, or somebody didn't appreciate what it was that we did. I mean, just think of it. If you're a parent, you totally fall in that category. I raised 2 kids that laugh at me at some of the crazy things I did when I was raising them. But my heart was always in the best good for them. I wanted them to be good people. I wanted them to be functioning parts of society. I wanted to teach them right or wrong. Or right from wrong, I should say. And, some of my ideas came from my parents. I was raised by very strict parents, and definitely I was raised in the 50s. Actually, I was born in the last year of the 50s. We'll just put it that way. And, and I was taught a certain way from my parents. Now, I learned from that that's not something that I wanted to do with my children. But I did have, I keep talking about my daughter, who is hilarious when she talks about my son and daughter's childhood. Hilarious. She has me on the floor in stitches. But I can laugh at it now. And it was hard for them, some of the things that I had put restrictions on them about. It was really hard for them. But it was something that I really believed in. And I really believed so seriously that they were going to go to hell, or they were going to really be bad people, or they were not going to be educated, or I had this fear. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. It's about the fear that motivates us to our beliefs or to the things that we do. And what is that fear really doing? Are we really doing what's best, or are we doing the things that we do because we were taught it, because that's what we've experienced, that's what we know, that's what we're comfortable with? Or do we challenge what we know, or what we think, or what do we fear? And then that's how we're able to kind of look through the prism and see what works and what doesn't work. What do I need to get rid of, and what do I not need to get rid of? But when we're doing it in a way that we feel like it's hurt somebody, like there's a situation that I could say that I would have reacted in a certain way that would have hurt my daughter. I'm not going to go into what it is right now, but because that's not the point. But I could have guilt about that. I could have bad feelings about that. Hi, Pam. I know we do our best, don't we? But we always have to challenge it. We always have to challenge ourselves. That's what I really want to talk to you about today. Is always be challenging yourself. Don't sit in the status quo. Always be thinking about why am I doing something. But back to this guy. So I had put in there about how, what our experiences are in life is what we are. That's what creates us. That's what makes us into the person we are. And I believe that we came here with a purpose and a plan. I believe that we came for specific things and experiences and different reasons to learn different things. So when we do something out of the goodness of our heart, if you're just really a bad person and you're hurting people on purpose, and that's a whole nother story. But we're talking about our daily lives when we're doing the best we can and we're stuck in a thought pattern. And so with my daughter, I could have a lot of, well, for my son actually as well. I don't know why I'm picking on my daughter. I'm sorry, daughter. I won't say her name because she'll get mad at me. But anyway, I don't want to pick on him. It could be for either one of my children because they both experienced it. So they both are going to be affected by it. And it was an experience that they learned from in different ways. I can see in the way that that they live their lives. But the interesting thing is, if it hurt them and they were maybe keeping the pattern going or doing something like that, it's not something that I can live the rest of my life in anger or resentment towards myself, beating myself up or making myself suffer because I caused this to happen. What I need to do is have compassion for myself because I didn't understand what the consequences of that was going to be long term, because it wasn't that big of a deal. I'm just giving an example. I think I did some horrible thing. But the point was, when we beat ourselves continuously up for something that we did, when we did it out of the goodness of our heart, out of because we really wanted the best and the highest good for somebody, then that's different than doing something when we know somebody is going to be hurt by it. And so one of the things that we have to do is have self-love and forgiveness, have compassion for yourself because you didn't know better. The caveat to that is when we don't make the change, when we see that we've been doing something that's wrong, or we see that we're in the wrong path or wrong way of thinking or doing the wrong thing, whatever it is, then it's up to us to decide whether we want to stay there or not. Why are we doing it? And what will happen when we change? And how will it look when we change? That's the thing that we're here to do in life. I firmly believe that we're here to all have experiences. So each thing that happens in our life is just an experience for us to learn from. It's what we do with those experiences that are really important. So if you're doing something over and over again, and you're going to keep getting the same results, as we all know. And I lived for years doing that. I kept on trying to make something different, doing the same thing over and over again. And it never changed because you're doing the same thing over and over again. So what I started realizing was I have to start changing things in my life. And so I would start challenging myself on some of the things that I had going on in my life. I would start questioning why I believed what I believed, or where did that come from? Or is it something that I still believe? And I think a lot of us are afraid to do that, especially when it comes to a lot of the people that follow me, and especially the two of you that I see here. I know there's two more here, but with Jacqueline and Pam, when we go into the spiritual world, there's a lot of controversy about that, especially when you're doing mediumship, which I absolutely love doing. There's a lot of controversy on whether that's okay or not. Are you doing something that's evil or not? And I've been told I'm going to go to hell and I'm a horrible person and all of those things, which is somebody else's belief. But I had that belief once. I totally had that belief once. I thought this was really the devil's work. And people, when they die, they just go, and I'm not saying that this is my belief. I'm not saying that anybody who believes something different is wrong. It's what you believe. And that's really the point to this. Own what you believe, but question what you believe. Because a lot of the people that I talk to or work with, they're afraid to question their beliefs. And the thing about that is, or at least from my experience and the people that I have worked with, is that when you believe something really deeply, you don't change those beliefs. So if I have a conversation with you and you tell me that when you die, you just go into the ethers, you don't exist anymore, you're just a soul and that's it. You get one lifetime and you're done. That's your belief. I'm not going to argue with you. I'll have a conversation with you if you want. I will talk with you about my experiences in mediumship and talking to people that have passed over. But at this point, you're not going to change my beliefs in that by you giving me your ideas or what you believe. I'm going to listen, because one of the things I learned is to listen. If you're not listening, then you're not learning. If you're not listening, then you can't make changes. You have to listen. So it really is about having compassion with yourself and asking the questions about, what do I want out of life? Hi, Janet. Nice to see you here. This is question and answer. I'm off on my little tangent right now, but it's question and answer. I'm not doing readings necessarily, although I do have my really nasty cards right here I've been playing with. But I just was talking about the book that I finally got today. I'm very excited. You can get it on Amazon. It's really a beautiful book. I really am so excited. We actually had our launch, we had our author's Zoom party today. And if you haven't gone over, go to 365 Days of Self-Love Facebook page, and you can keep up on the authors. You can keep up on what's going on there. And yeah, it's just really a fun book, and I'm really, really proud of it. I'm very excited. Kim Richardson had compiled this book with 58 other authors. She's also the one that did The Kindness Crusader, which I absolutely love as well. It's beautiful. And I'm really excited about it. So it's out. We've all got our book. It was like a labor of love to get this done. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. Oh, you know what? This is what I'll do. I'm going to say this now, though. It's got to be in the U.S. If you're not in the U.S., I'm not shipping it. I will, for anybody who's watching in a minute. I know that's really good, huh? International bestseller. That's really exciting. I'm going to do a free giveaway of the book at the end of this video. I have a couple of them that I have. I'm not going to do selling them on my page or anything like that, because these books are really heavy. And I know you could do book rate, but it's going to not be. I would rather Amazon ship it than me shipping it. So I'm gonna. Hi, Alan. I was thinking about you the other day. Actually, yesterday, I think. I want to know what you're going to be for Halloween. That's what I want to know, Alan. You know, somebody had somebody doing something on voice, and I don't know how they did it, and I need to find out how they did it. Maybe I am. I don't know. So I started a new class with this gentleman today, Michael Ivers, I think it is. And he was really fantastic, FYI, Michael, Alan. I really liked him. He was very interesting. I'll have to tell you about him. Anyway, so the conversation today is about really owning what it is that you believe, but also challenging your beliefs. I know Alan and I have had many conversations about this, challenging your beliefs. And, you know, when you go into something and, you know, I don't know about you, but when I start something and it's new, then I just go both feet in and you learn everything I can, which I love doing. I love learning. It's something that I really enjoy doing. But sometimes you can get so caught up into what you're doing or what you're learning that you're not really balancing that with, is this really in alignment to me? And so, yeah, many, many challenges of belief. We always need to be challenging our beliefs, always, because it creates, I feel like it just really opens us up to really experience the full expression of what we're here to experience. And when we're not really asking the questions, then we're not really learning a lot about ourselves, because really our beliefs, especially when we're growing up, right? We get the lessons from our parents, from our schools, from our society. All of that's going through our filtration, our mental filtration. And we're trying to understand what it all means to us and how we're going to assimilate it in our lives. But are they really all our beliefs? Because it's coming from the people that we really honor and respect. It's something I've thought a lot about. It doesn't mean that it's wrong at all. It just means that's where our foundation comes from. And that if we just go through life and we never challenge that, then how do we keep expanding? How do we keep growing? How do we keep helping other people? How do we keep the world, a better place? So what do you do, Janet, to challenge your beliefs consciously now? What kind of things do you do Alan, what do you do to challenge your beliefs? Because I know Alan and I talk a lot about this. So I know Alan challenges his beliefs and questions a lot. And how about you, Jacqueline? What do you do to challenge your beliefs? And what beliefs have you challenged lately? Like for me, the biggest belief for me was definitely religion. And it was, I don't know if any of you caught it, but I did a show with Johnny on his channel, the Tarot's Apprentice, Monday. I think I'm doing one tomorrow with him as well. And the subject of it, I'm not putting anybody down. This is not a negative thing because we all have different beliefs and we all come from different places. Meditating on them is really, yes, I do that a lot too. Meditate on them. A lot of reading. And that's the key too. The key is talking to people about them. Definitely. I know. I wasn't going to really say what we've been chatting about, but definitely is mediumship real? So put in there why you believe that. Religion is one of the biggest beliefs, Janet, that we definitely deal with, because if you think about it, it's all about not understanding what happens after this life, and we don't really know. I always tell everybody, right? We don't know what is really going to be on the other side. We don't know. We have an idea, and I feel like Spirit teaches us a lot about that, but we won't really know until we go to the other side. And so that puts fear in a lot of people. That really does. And my belief is that a lot of religions use fear to keep them a part of the church and to keep them close to the control that they want. Because if you start using your own mind, if you start questioning and actually having a relationship and a conversation, like what Alan said, he sits and meditates with that. And I know I do that every day. I sit with my team and I meditate and I allow my team to work with me on what I need to do. And I believe it's true because just like I'm having a conversation with you, or just like Alan and I have had a debate about mediumship and the different aspects of it, it's a conversation that we have with our spirit world as well. And they talk with us. And so you don't have to believe anything that you hear or or however you communicate with your guides. I'm going to pull you on here, Alan. You're definitely going to get pulled into the live at the rate you're going, because you're right, questioning whether consciousness is truly conscious. Again, that goes back to, I don't think we're going to have all the answers while we're here, but the beauty is to ask the questions, right? It's about asking the questions, because if you think about it, it was a conversation I had with somebody just recently about, we live this life like we're on a conveyor belt and we're just going through life, instead of living our life like it's our life and that every person in our life is a player in our life. And how many people, right? How many people are listening to this give their power away? They do not keep their own power. And that's what happens when we're being influenced by other people or other religions or thoughts. Like, how many people are like on two sides of the fence when it even comes to a pandemic that has killed almost 800,000 people? Can you even wrap your brain around that? I can't even wrap my brain around that. And yet we have this diverse conversation about whether it's real, whether we should. And I'm not in a debate about whether it's real or not, or vaccines or whatever. But we have this diverse convergence of both sides of that spectrum, which to me is insane. It's just insane. I'm reading. Hold on. Yeah, taking courses too, because every time you get the perspective of somebody else, Pam, is really a good idea. I love doing that. I like doing controversial things too, because it makes you think about something. Oh, I didn't think of it that way. Or does that resonate with me? Or wow, I wondered about that. Like when I first was coming out of religion, I was already having ideas about this and this and this didn't make sense. How about this? Why is this that way? This doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit with that. How come this is out of place to that? How come it's not all working? I mean, I was constantly starting to put puzzle pieces together and go, this is not working for me. And so one of the things that I started doing was taking different courses and talking to different people. And in doing that, I was opening my mind up to the truth, right? Again, if you really believe in something, nobody's going to change your mind from that. But if you've already had doubts or thoughts about something, that's when somebody can come in and put a little piece of that puzzle back together for you. And you can go, oh, now I agree. That's what I was thinking. That's how I felt about that. But when you're in a religion, they don't give you that permission to be able to ask the questions a lot of times. Oh my gosh, some of the questions that I wanted to ask, I would have not. Yeah. All right, I'll send you the link. Hold on, Alan. The impromptu guest. Hold on now. I'm going to send it to you, Messenger. Hold on, everybody. I know there's a way that you could talk to people on the phone, if I'm not mistaken, but through this via phone. All right. I just sent it to you, Alan. Hold on to your socks, people. Hold on to your socks. Yeah, I was told that too, Janet, the be all. But I was reading an article which really ticked me off. I mean, big time ticked me off about, and the statistics are hidden, and I don't know if we'll ever know the real number, but how the priests were raping the nuns, and then they would send the nuns to go get an abortion, which is against their religion. And yet they would keep raping the nuns. And this has gone on for centuries. And it's something that's not even talked about. When you go into such an extreme thought process, then you cause extreme reactions. And that's really the bottom line. And, and I'm not saying, they're any worse or better than anybody else, right? But it's an extreme of something that was a belief that causes people to do extreme actions, and they do it in secret. We won't even go to, all of that stuff, but you get my point. Okay, so I'm off track. We'll wait for Alan to come on. He'll be here soon. So challenging our beliefs, though, is something that can be scary. It's something that we can avoid because we're comfortable where we're at. I know when I first started challenging my beliefs, I got to be very uncomfortable. And there would be nights that I would go to sleep going, oh my God, I'm going to just die in my sleep and go to hell. But I knew that it wasn't true. I knew that the direction I was going is right. And one of the things that's really interesting to me, hold on, I'm pulling Alan up, is that, hold on 1 minute, Alan, is that when we are doing what's right, then we know that's right. And when we're not living in fear, then we know that we're doing the right thing because we're balanced. Our brain is balanced. We're not doing something out of a knee-jerk reaction versus, just expecting that. I'm distracted now. We're not doing it out of a knee-jerk reaction. We're really being inquisitive about what the truth is. Hi, Alan. Shall we talk about consciousness?
Glad to be here. And I love these wild impromptu conversations. Aren't they great?
I do too. And I love that I'm able to, hey, come on, just come on up. So you and I have had a lot of conversation because I came from a Catholic religion into an Orthodox Jewish religion into mediumship, in essence, is kind of the process I've gone. Short trip. But even you and I have been talking about mediumship and what is really happening with mediumship. Tell people about what you have been thinking about that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because for me, I guess the greatest challenge I have is when mediums are actually communicating,
Mm-hmm.
are they really communicating? Because if people are on this spiritual path, they're going to have questions, and they're going to recognize that maybe reincarnation is a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe consciousness does exist after death. But what I wrote in the comments, is consciousness conscious
Mm-hmm.
after that consciousness has left the physical earth plane?
Okay, so break that down slowly because I'm sure people are like,
I
what
know it
did
blows
you
my
just
mind even
say?
saying it out loud. So consciousness in kind of simplistic terms
Mm-hmm.
is the soul. Let's just say
Right,
that the
right.
soul or the spirit of the
Mm-hmm.
individual.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my belief is that the soul is eternal.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to end when someone physically passes away.
Mm-hmm.
The soul will continue to live on. Now, I'm not yet convinced of reincarnation, but I think it's possible. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
possible, and I feel like if the soul is immortal, I certainly would hope my soul would have more than this life chance to experience.
Yeah.
So I'm open to the possibility of
Mm-hmm.
reincarnation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I say consciousness, yes, it is the soul, but I also look at kind of the lifetime, the experiences, the thinking, the personality, the just everything that makes you as
Mm-hmm.
the individual.
Right.
Now, if the soul is immortal, it will predate this current
Exactly.
life form.
Mm-hmm.
And if it predates, it will also exist in maybe a different life form.
Mm-hmm.
Because Lord knows, I'm hoping my previous and future lives, I have a full lush head of hair. Maybe I'll be 6'2" and gorgeous, So, I'm just saying, I
Oh,
jest, of
God.
course, but, I
Yes,
just
you
say
are.
that, I do
Mm-hmm.
feel as though that the soul is going to have many experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm open to reincarnation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't have physical proof of that, and that's okay. I can be ambiguous about reincarnation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, if consciousness, again, when I define consciousness, I mean the personality, I mean the lifestyle, I mean everything that makes up this person.
Mm-hmm.
If my soul and consciousness exists and can survive, I think that it doesn't necessarily and go from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. How many times have you walked past or driven past a cemetery? And back in Chicago, where I grew up, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there are cemeteries where people are from the 1700s, from the
Mm-hmm.
1740s, 80s, 1840s, and so forth. And I often wonder who those people were. And I have experience where you can kind of do some research where you can
Right.
tune into someone
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then figure out who they were. And I've
Mm-hmm.
received information that I've been able to look up or validate through
Mm-hmm.
public records. But that's where I think that consciousness, that personality begins and ends, those markers on the grave. And not to say that someone else, that soul isn't reincarnated or born into someone else. I think that's very possible.
Mm-hmm.
However, where I get a little bit, I think, controversial in this work
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
is when mediums will say, "Oh, your mom was at your house and she was the one knocking on your window," or
Mm-hmm.
your dad knows about your move coming up and wants to give you his support. Hmm, I question that. I question that very much.
I think that what you're saying is really important. So I don't want to go over this because I get what you're saying, but I'm not sure that everybody else does. So we are as a soul energy. It's
Exactly.
really kind of like non-personal or personality, right? It's well, it's got a tone to it, a resonance to it. Let's put it that way. It's not
Yes.
like Alan needs to be 6 foot with a full head of hair, very comical, theatrical, and enjoys life, right? That's Alan, that person.
Right.
But that's not you're wonderful the way you are. I'm telling you that
I'm
right now.
just like Mr. Rogers tell me. I like you just the way you are.
Well, I do like you the way you are. But that's you as a human being. That's you in this lifetime. That's
Right.
not you as a residence of the soul of Alan.
That's right.
Because okay, so I want people to understand that that's what you're talking about. You're talking about why would you, the soul of Alan, come back and tell me if you were my brother and say da 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 da? Because you're not Alan anymore. You're that energy source that you were as
Exactly.
a soul.
Exactly.
Wanna make
And
sure people know that.
so that's why that controversial statement,
Mhm.
is consciousness conscious
Mhm.
after the physical death? I really doubt that. And I doubt that um because that energy, that soul, and if to use that analogy of energy, of everything being energy and vibration, well, we know from science, and science is getting more and more on board with the spiritual, that
Yeah.
energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It can only be
Mhm.
transferred and
Mhm.
recreate something, or to create something else. And if that's the case, if that's the hypothesis, I want to be. I think most mediums want to prove their worth and say that they are credible and they're tapping in there. And
Right.
if they want to do that, we science is great for proving facts and figures
Mhm.
and things like that.
Mhm.
Obviously, it's not I don't think that they're mutually exclusive. But
Mhm.
for the sake of our argument today, let's
Mhm.
just take that law of energy. Energy
Right.
can't be destroyed or created. It's just
Mhm.
transforming.
Mhm.
Whatever that transference of energy is probably not going to be concerned with this life or this
Mm,
situation.
I don't know if you think about it though. I mean, we've okay. Let me go back to. I know when I think about it, um, as the energy source of my soul, right? The truth of who I am, not as Joanne, but the source,
Right.
the energy. I I still feel like we interact with each other in different ways. Like we do things together or whatever. We have soul families or whatever. We don't know what it is, but we do things together and we
Yeah.
learn in different ways and blah, 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 blah. So I feel like because to me, it does still show an intelligence, right? When that energy source, like your grandfather's energy comes back as your grandfather, it's to share with us here that we do have that there. Like that is the truth. There is truth to that.
Yeah. Yeah. And here I want to use a couple of analogies as
Mhm,
to make my point a little
mhm,
clearer.
mhm,
So, water, of course, has three known
mhm,
states,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
Molecularly, it doesn't care
Yes.
whether it is ice, whether it
Right.
is vapor,
Mm-hmm.
whether it is water. Now, there are some people that are called panpsychists or panpsychism
Mm-hmm.
advocates, and they believe everything has consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Everything from water to this table that my
Mm-hmm.
computer is on, to your phone, to you, me,
Mm-hmm.
to the grass, and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If it has consciousness, that means there must be volition, there must be choice, there must be awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And I doubt very much this cup of water I have
Mm-hmm.
on my desk with melted ice cubes cares whether that water is frozen, liquid, or
Right.
vapor.
Right.
So that's the first kind of metaphor that I
Mm-hmm.
just want to throw in there to help you understand where I'm coming from. The second metaphor is um, there's a phrase I recently heard, and it made so much sense to me that, we are not a wave in the ocean experiencing the ocean. We are the ocean
Mm-hmm.
experiencing as a wave.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where, we hear it in spiritual circles everywhere, right? We're all one. There's oneness, there's this and
Mm-hmm.
that. And so, will those ice cubes that have melted really be affected by the water that it's gone into? Or is the water that it went into affected by the ice cubes?
Well, the ice cube, in your analogy, the ice cube is water, meaning our soul, our
That's right.
essence is the energy. The body that we're in would be the wave or the ice cube. You see what I'm saying?
And
So it's
then,
like,
right. And then, but going back into the mix, so those
right.
melted ice
Mm-hmm.
cubes have returned to the
The water.
greater.
Mm-hmm.
They're not worried about, oh, I used to be an ice cube and now look at me. I'm this short, fat, insecure thing. No, I'm the short, wet thing that's part of the ocean and it's greater than them.
Right.
So, and that's my rationale here is that I'm not convinced. Now, I do want to come back to your point about the soul and the guides and the
Mm-hmm.
spirit families,
Mm-hmm.
because I've had this conversation a lot lately
You
about
have.
the spirit guides.
Yeah.
And I I I my hypothesis was the sage old idea of this is my guide
Mm-hmm.
is in fact your soul through the avatar lens that you give it.
I have often thought about that as well because it kind of goes back to as we are one, which means if we are one but individual, like the ice cube in the water or the molecules that make up the water, any of that, it's all still the water. You have to ask that question. You just have to. I mean, but yet again, each molecule in that water is important to the foundation of that water.
Absolutely.
Right. So it's like,
But I don't want to. I want to clear up. I don't disagree with the idea
mhm,
of a soul family or things like
mhm,
that,
mhm,
because I do believe that obviously we can't do this on our own. We
right.
can't do this on our own because we're trying to have a human
Mhm,
experience and make
right.
sense of this world.
Exactly.
And people, I believe, are part of that learning curve. They're part of the team to help us achieve that
Exactly.
at one mint with God or
Mhm,
Creator or Source, whatever your word for it is.
mhm,
Now, um, I heard this weekend on Sunday I was taking a course by by Gordon Smith, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and he shared a story about when he was going along his path, he'd be in meditation and he would see just the backside of a guide, and he would just see his feet. And there were times where he was questioning whether or not he should continue with his mediumship or his unfoldment. And the guide would just stretch out an arm and say, well, there's the playground, or there's the carnival, or there's the whatever, at various times.
Yeah.
And then at one point, the guide finally turned around. And when the guide turned around, it was Gordon. And, and that was kind of a confirmation for me that the guide that I know most in my life or in my spiritual practice is my soul. That wants to take that journey with me, that is there every step along the way. And you and I have sat in trance, and we've here's kind of the sticky part in my theory here is because when we sit for trance for one another and we sit and observe, there are 3 or 4 or 5 other people that can validate the experience that the sitting medium is having. So that's that soul family. That is that group of teachers and helpers that are coming through. But it all starts with building that relationship with your own soul.
Yes.
And that is where, like, when you were asking earlier about questioning what you believe and why do you believe it, I was someone who was really unchurched growing up. I mean, we would go to Christmas and Easter, but I didn't have a lot of dogma thrown down my throat as to this is how it is or this is how it isn't. And it isn't until I actually started to attend a Center for Spiritual Living. They used to be called Religious Science, and founded by Ernest Holmes. When I would read the text, or I would hear the talk, or I would, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's kind of what I intuited, or I've known as truth for myself all these years. I just didn't know the verbiage. I didn't know the literature on it. And it really stemmed from questioning, because, as I remember very, very clearly as a gay man in high school, just a child back in the 90s, and seeing Fred Phelps and his clan on TV almost weekly protesting. And it always struck me odd. I thought, how could God create itself and hate it?
Yes, I agree.
And so that's really when I kind of stood up and said, this isn't for me. This teaching is not right. And so I had to spend that time getting to know my soul, getting to know what I thought and why I thought it. And, that for me has made all the difference, because while we are one, we are still an individual expression.
Exactly.
Of that oneness.
It strikes me odd, and I just had this happen yesterday when I was talking to somebody about, do they meditate? And this is somebody who's pretty, known. And they were like, no. Well, I do. I walk, but I don't sit there. I don't do. I'm like, why are people so adverse to actually sitting with their soul and getting to know? And I do get it when you're facing like for me, when I was facing the beginning of really realizing who I am, what I am, and what do I believe, then that gets to be scary. You're just like, no, I don't want to do that. No, so my meditation during that time was walking meditation. But to really develop who you are is to sit with you, not with all your guides, not with all the angels, not with all the whatever.
Exactly.
Just sitting with you and getting to know, because you're not getting to know you as Alan or Joanne. You're getting to know your soul and what your purpose is here, what you're here for, what really is your goal. I mean, what makes you tick? Where did you go wrong? I mean, there's so many things that we learn just by sitting in the quiet with ourselves.
One of my childhood heroes, Mr. Rogers, I already referenced him once before, but
You have to pay royalties on this.
he would exactly he would often say that his biggest worry,
Mm-hmm.
and he's been gone now 25 plus years, but his biggest worry was that children didn't have enough time to think,
Yes.
didn't have enough quiet time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, can you imagine what he would think of this world where everything is on our phone or instantaneous?
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that has always struck me. And there are times where I just kind of sit and I could be wide awake, I could be having my morning coffee, whatever, and not really think about anything.
Yeah.
And those are some of they go by like that.
Yeah.
But those are some of I'll use the word safe.
Mm-hmm.
Those are some of the safest moments of my life,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not being distracted by the news. I'm not checking my Instagram or Facebook. I'm not doing any of that. I'm not looking at emails. It's just me in the quiet.
Mm-hmm. Which gets to know you.
Exactly.
Personally, you. And a lot of people are afraid to see who they really are, because we see, the thing about it though is we usually make that fear out to be more than it actually is. When we can actually sit with ourselves and realize why we are the way we are, why we believe what we believe, what we've been taught, what we've held on to that we were taught that we didn't really believe. I mean, there's so many things that really aren't ours to hold on to. Then we can find that we're really not as bad as we thought we were.
Well, the thing about fear is that it's imagination. It's about something in the future, something that hasn't even happened.
Mm-hmm.
And yet fear is probably the most debilitating mental illness, because it's in the mind. And when you become fearful, look, how many times have we read in the holy books or in the Bible where an angel comes and says, "Hey, fear not, you don't have to be afraid."
Exactly.
And that's really, when you sit in that time of the stillness, of the quiet, you cannot allow the fear to unfold. And look, I'm not saying people don't have bad days and then they start worrying. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, we all have those days. But we have to recognize that we fear can be immobilizing.
It can be.
If we choose to let it.
That
is a choice.
Right. I mean, you can say that, yes, we all have to experience all these days. We will experience all these days or whatever. But the more that you sit in the stillness, the more that you get to know who you really are as a soul, the truth of who you are, the less bad days you have. So it's still a progression of, we're never going to come out of, never having a bad day, because that's why we're here. We wouldn't have come here if that was the way it was going to be.
Right.
Maybe some people can achieve it. I know in my lifetime, it's probably not going to happen. But it's all of those moments that we realize what the truth really is, or the importance really is, versus I need to be 6 feet tall with a head full of hair.
Well, that's exactly right. And when you recognize that, Mr. Rogers had it right. I like you just the way you are. He's not talking about the way you look or the way your clothes or your toys or whatever. He was talking about your soul. Your soul is perfect, exactly the way it is, because it's that perfect expression of God. And if you acknowledge for yourself through affirmation, through prayer, through meditation, that goodness that is God. Have you ever known anyone who said God was cruel or evil?
Yes, but
I have too. And it's absurd, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
Because But God is goodness.
Right.
God is peace. God is joy. God is health and wholeness. God is creativity. God is wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And because our perfect soul comes from that source,
Right.
there can be no other holding for our soul.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
would destroy itself. It would destroy itself if we were not wise. If our soul, not the person is an individual expression, but their soul is perfect. Their soul is love. Their soul is joy. And this is where I feel um, the spiritual community. You probably have heard the word spiritual bypass thrown around, where people
Mm-hmm.
take a class or they read a book and poof, I'm healed. Well, we have to constantly affirm, recognize, and acknowledge the beauty, but it has to come not only from here, from
Right.
your brain and the words that come out of your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
You have to feel it.
You
You
do.
have to recognize it. And it's hard work. It's hard work, but it is replacing those negative, nasty thoughts
Mm-hmm.
with those positive, loving, God-filled thoughts that are the eternal truth of your soul.
I know that, and put in the chat if you guys can answer that, is there's a lot of bucking up against that. A lot of bucking up against that because, well, there's a lot of reasons why. So, do you think that we can ever attain that or close to that? Well, I don't want to say perfection because I don't know that we could ever attain perfection, but how close do you think we can get to that?
I think if we try to live with basically the three principles that go
Mhm.
back to ancient philosophies: get your thinking right,
Mm-hmm.
get your words right, and get your actions right.
Yes.
I think those three things,
Mhm.
and notice how it always starts with your thinking. And
Yes.
do you remember that old Mahatma Gandhi quote that comes from Lao Tzu and is featured in the movie The Iron Lady? It's like, watch your thoughts because they become words. Watch your words because they become your actions. Watch your actions because they become your habits. Watch your habits because they become
Yep.
your
Yep.
destiny, so on and so forth. But it always comes from your thoughts.
Yes. And, I think that people feel like, okay, if I don't think this and it's not going to happen, but your thoughts is more than just what goes on in your head. It's your actions,
Exactly.
your belief, it's the way that you live your life. All of those things create your thoughts. So you have to have all of that as pure as you can potentially get to be able to change the directory of your life. If you're just thinking,
Yes.
okay, I'm not going to think I'm a bad person and I did this wrong or I did that. You can't do that. You have to love yourself.
Right.
You have to understand what your purpose here is and connect back to that higher part of you, not that human part of you. Because that's still
Exactly.
fear comes from the ego. Fear does not come from your soul.
Right. Of course not. And and if you are floundering, it's okay to not
Yes.
know
Yeah.
what your destiny is or what you want to do with your life.
Mm-hmm.
But and I'm not saying the denials or changing your thoughts are to present yourself as some neuroses or
Mm-hmm.
schizophrenic mindset. It
Right.
is you acknowledge the God quality of you that is pure. So you recognize, you may be going through a terrible breakup or a
Mm-hmm.
terrible divorce or something like that, but you recognize my soul is the soul and the goodness of love.
Mm-hmm.
My joy is that eternal goodness of God.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're not necessarily looking at the situations because, yeah, we all have crappy days, right? We all have days that we wish we could live over.
Right.
But I do believe that from those moments, we can use those unpleasantries
Mm-hmm.
and turn them into something positive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's really important to remember. Again, don't go into the fear or the belittlement of self because you've done something or something didn't go your way. It's about learning from those experiences and then growing from that, because each experience we have, it's not given to us just for nothing. It's for us to learn from.
I
That's the
believe
whole
so.
point.
I believe so. There can be a slippery slope, I think, in this work where people feel that every situation in your life is because of your thinking.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
And I think that can be a
Mhm.
dangerous
Mhm.
avenue to go down
Mhm.
because, you know, um, let's say a house fire, for instance,
Mhm.
you know, were you thinking about something that brought a house fire to your
Exactly.
world?
Mhm.
Probably not. You
Mhm.
probably weren't thinking, oh, I wonder how many plugs I can plug into this outlet or whatever. You probably weren't thinking about that. You probably, but it, what is, I think, and this is my belief, what I do believe is that while the situation may or may not be a result of our thinking, the next step, our reaction,
Yes.
our perspective is
Mhm.
entirely up to us.
Mhm.
So we can have a pity party and be sad for a few days,
Mhm.
but unless we choose to say, okay, now let's move forward. I mean, I have I've lost jobs where they were very substantial or they were my full-time employment, and if I just sat there and had a pity party all day,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to move forward. I wouldn't be able to take the next step. So fear, going back to that
Mhm.
idea, is something we anticipate in the future about
Yes.
something that has happened in the
Right.
past.
Yep, already happened. Mhm.
And so what we have to release is that the possibility of something in the past is going to happen again.
The interesting thing about that, and a lot of people that have that theory, because I am a believer of what you think you create, not because it's like you said, it's a chain reaction, right? It's like something happens and what you think, or you know how it works.
Right.
Um, is that shoot, I forgot what I was gonna say there. Dang. My point though is it is a chain reaction. We can stop it. But what I want to say is don't beat yourself up, because we're all going to go into different experiences where some we're just going to go, okay, fine, I'm done. Yeah, got it. Moving on.
Right.
And some experiences we're going to go through that in a more painful way because there's something that we needed to learn from that. And it's not like we needed to learn from that. It's just our experience as a human in this life is going to make the choices that's going to cause
Yes.
us to learn from that. So I don't want people to walk away and say, "Oh yeah, I've been having this terrible experience for 35 years and it doesn't get any better. See, I'm just learning a lesson." Well, then you're just being a chronic um how do you say this nicely? You're not making wise choices for 35 years. We'll put it that way. But there are things that happen that we have to be able to process, to unfold, to
Yes.
figure out. And that's a part of our learning. That's a part of our process. So there is that fine line, I believe, also in our community where, okay, I create like karma, right? I had this thought, this happens, my house burns down, karma. I created that, but it doesn't really work that way. It was some things just happen, but what you do after that, like you said, that's the thing that's important. How you react to it and how you process it. That's
Right.
the key.
Right. And so, going back to this idea of oneness, if
Mhm.
we're all tethered to that universal source of consciousness, somewhere along the line, a choice was made, which set into motion the actions which may have impacted us.
Yes.
And so,
Exactly.
it's that concept of karma is often
Mhm.
misrepresented by the law of cause and effect.
Yes.
Those are two different laws. So
Yes.
we don't have time to go through both of them, but the idea is that somewhere in the universal web of consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
something had happened which prompted another thing to happen, which prompted another thing
Yep.
to happen, which prompted another thing to happen, which prompted another thing to happen, which ended up with a house fire.
Right.
And or a car accident or
Mm-hmm.
an accident. I mean, look at the news. Look at Alec Baldwin right now.
Oh my
You know,
God.
do you really
Yeah.
think that he thought about
Yes.
harming someone or killing someone? No. It's a chain reaction to
Yep.
two or three or four or five or six other choices that other
Mm-hmm.
people met. And so
Mm-hmm.
this is that spider web. This
Mm-hmm.
is that spider web of consciousness that
Mm-hmm.
people, I think, don't either they ignore, they're
Yeah.
not taught it, or they choose to label it something other and they don't try to understand it. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, everything is everything in the now, and that, let's be honest, that's all we have is now and now, now, now.
Exactly. Yeah.
And everything now stems from what came before it. And that's
Exactly.
where people
Yeah.
people I don't think that they understand that part of cause and
Mm-hmm.
effect versus karma, because here's where the karma differs is if you understand the law of cause and effect, but you choose not to do anything, that's creating the negative karma.
Exactly.
That is causing the negative karma. Because if you choose to do nothing, you will remain in that position of enabling. You
Mm-hmm.
remain in that position of just letting things be.
Mm-hmm.
And so what do you think is going to happen in the next? I mean, we hear it all the time about
Mm-hmm.
alcoholics, drug
Mm-hmm.
users, um, sexual abuse. you
Mm-hmm.
know it hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
Like what? And I don't want to make light of the situation or make it simpler than it is, but the reality is people see patterns and
Yes.
then they either choose to make different patterns or they
Mm-hmm.
continue them. And that's the difference between karma and cause and effect.
And it's really not. I'm going to come back to your statement, Pam, because it's a good one. But I feel like there's two things that happen though, because like in my situation, I kept on doing the same thing over and over again, thinking it was going to change because I was doing whatever. Right. I wasn't condoned. Like you're saying, if you look away or if you don't do something about it. And but that was my choice to do. And I paid the price and other people paid the price from that, but there was still so much benefit from that. So I don't want people to walk away and going, "Oh, I just kept on doing this over and over again. I kept on getting the same thing and I don't understand it." Or or I'm
But,
wrong for doing it.
but when did that benefit pan out?
Well,
After you made a
it's
choice
when
to correct it.
exactly. It's when you finally decide to make that change.
And
Now,
yeah.
I would not have done anything different based on the lessons that I have learned from it. Like there are lessons that I am sure, whether there's past lives, future lives, whatever, I will never forget that in any life again. I will never go back to that again. That's how deep it was. It did affect other people. And I still feel like other people, though, are learning from it as well. So the statement is don't walk away thinking because I perpetuated something or I would have caused a chain reaction to something that I'm a bad person,
No, not
because
at
we're
all.
not. I'm just saying for people that are listening, don't walk away with that opinion because there's still something to that. But there is the reality where if I would have made choice A in the beginning, then none of us would have ever experienced it. And I would have preferred that. But I still learned a lot of lessons from it that made it worthwhile for the journey. So Pam asked a question, which I want to get your response to. But hoping that we start recognizing each other as souls on this earth. Do you think it's possible that we could recognize each other's soul?
I think it's possible, but people have to make that choice to do that.
Mm-hmm.
They have to make that choice to recognize their political nemesis, the, let's say, homeless person,
Mm-hmm.
the neighbor, the
Mm-hmm.
family member that you hold a grudge against. You have to make that choice and release whatever is whatever resentment you're holding on to.
Yeah.
There's a great saying that says, resentment is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And so it would be great if people would recognize that soul. And it takes time. I mean, like, look, I get ticked off, and someone cuts me off on the street. I'm ready to shout all sorts of profane statements their way.
Uh,
But it's we what we have to recognize is, like, they're they're doing the best they can, just
exactly.
as we are doing the best they can. And sometimes, someone, take that car cutting me off. I don't know what their story is. I
Right.
don't know if they're driving someone to the hospital. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if they got a call, that someone had just passed away. I don't know that if they're late to work one more time, they're going to get fired. And then how are they going to feed their 5 children? We don't know the other people's stories. But we are
Exactly.
so caught up in the ego is so caught up in my story, in my survival, in
Mhm.
my needs. So, there really does have to be that taming of the ego that needs to happen in order to really see others as,
Yeah.
and everyone's a mirror.
It's just clear for you.
Everyone is a mirror to yourself. And so if we can remember that
Yeah.
every day, that's how souls begin to recognize one another.
And I think that answers your question, Michelle. And hello, Michelle and Dawn. Thank you for being here. Because we are mirrors to each other. So, and it is kind of a domino effect if we allow it to be that way. It can be a domino effect. But I feel like we do actually interact with each other's souls when we're doing like psychic work or mediumship work because we're going
Absolutely.
into the energy of your soul. We're not
Yep.
connecting to you as a human being. So, and like when you walk into a room and you feel something in the room, it's we're aware of each other's soul. But I agree with what you're saying. Again, it goes back to what we said earlier about sitting and knowing who you are, sitting in your power, sitting in
Exactly.
your only in your energy, not about going into meditation or doing guided this or going off to that, cabin or that cave or whatever. It's about just sitting within yourself and knowing who you are and what you're doing. My belief is that you're building your power within yourself. And then you're going to be vibrating at
Exactly.
a higher level where other people that are doing the same thing. And I think that's how we kind of get to know each other. We come together is by how we vibrate. How, what are we doing
Yep.
that's connecting to each other? So
Totally agree.
definitely. Um, and it is, I don't, how do I say this? Um, we can be affected by each other by the being in tune, Michelle. So when you go into a room again, like I said, and you feel like somebody is angry or frustrated or sad or whatever, you're feeling that. And that's how we're rubbing off on each other, as you put it. We're feeling each other's energy and then we're reacting to it. And if you're aware of that, then you're going to be more mindful about your reaction, right? You're
That's
not,
right.
if you go into a room and the energy is really down, you have the choice to be down or you have the choice to raise it up. Like Alan's not going to walk into a room that's down and, go in the corner. He's going to raise the vibration because I know Alan.
Probably, but you're right though, Joanne, is that you have to make a choice and recognize
Mhm.
that that is not your energy.
Exactly.
That is not for you.
Yep.
So if someone is in a funky mood, that is not yours. You can recognize, oh, that person's in a funky mood, and
Mhm.
just go about your business.
Mhm.
Now, it's hard if you're dealing with someone you're dating or living with or things like
Mhm.
that. So, but you have to recognize, oh, this person, and it's about empathy, isn't it? This
Yeah.
person's having a bad day. I'm like, oh, I noticed this is, and oftentimes you don't even have to say anything. Just
Right.
be
Right.
and allow them to be.
Mm-hmm.
But the hard part is we have to get out of the way so that we don't allow their attitude or mood to affect us and just say, oh, okay, well, I guess they're having a bad day. And it's hard. I'm telling
It's
you, it
hard.
is hard work. It's hard work. I have to remind, for those of you that don't know me, I teach, and I teach kids, and like there are some days where there are some days, but I have to recognize they're not me.
Right.
They're not me. They have to experience their dramas, their anxieties, their fears. But at the end of the day, what is on me is validating their soul,
Mm-hmm.
loving them no matter what,
Mm-hmm.
allowing them to recognize their own essence of love. And it's hard. It's hard.
It's important to remember that loving them does not mean that you are okay with what they're doing or how they're acting or whatever. Loving them is saying, I give you permission to be who you are without
You.
judgment, without condemning you, without coming down on you, without criticizing you. I give you permission to be who you are. And I give me permission not to take it on, because one of the things you said is people's vibes rubbing off on you, but also the mirror effect. Now, the mirror effect is when you're in a situation and somebody is doing something that triggers you. That's not them rubbing off on you. That's them doing something that's going to trigger inside of you a weakness or a situation that you need to work on. That's a completely different
That's right.
thing. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
But we do have control, and we do need to have more love for each other, because like you said, a lot of times, like what Michelle was saying, when you come into a situation where there's negative energy or whatever, it's what we choose to do with that. We don't have to hold on to that, but we
Exactly.
also have to make sure that we're sending out love to that.
That's right.
That's really, really important, that, we don't just say, well, I'm just going to go off on my merry way. You get to be who you are. But if we can really take that time to send love to that person, that could change that person's day as well.
Religious science centers for spiritual living practitioners, when they are working, they acknowledge the divine quality in that
Mhm.
person.
Mhm.
They don't do healing themselves.
Mhm.
They don't try to pray whatever it is away. What they acknowledge is the divine truth of that person.
Mhm.
And the theory behind it is, when you acknowledge the divine theory or the love or whatever it is about them, you're actually changing your mindset. The person,
Right.
the practitioner, the prayer,
Mhm.
the prayer is changing their mindset, so
Yeah.
that they say, you know what? Yep, life was hard growing up, but the truth of, I'll just use you for namesake. The
Mhm.
truth of Joanne is, she is the creative force of her own life.
Mhm.
She is the love that God is. She is the power that Spirit is. And when you do that, just by saying those words, I begin to feel that shift in
Mhm.
vibration. I
Mhm.
begin to express it, and the mind of God sets into action that vibration. So, Joanne, I may hold prayer and I may say that silently or out loud to myself, and Joanne's nowhere near me.
Mhm.
But just by sending out that vibration, it changes the frequency, changes the energy, because eventually those affirmative statements,
Mhm.
they begin to run as truth.
Mhm.
They begin to run as truth, and they replace the old thoughts.
Yeah.
And if I can hold that for my mind, the idea is it'll eventually make its way so that Joanne can hold those truths for herself.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you on that. The interesting thing you said that I think is a fallacy in the healing world is I'm not putting Reiki down. I'm just using that because it came to my mind. I'm a Reiki master and I'm going to do healing to Alan and I'm going to heal him of his issue. And that's not
Nope.
what healing is.
No, not
That
at all.
really blows my mind. And I wish people that were teaching healing would understand that I don't have the power to heal you. I have the power to send you love. I have the power to give you the blessing that what is in your right alignment and within you that you'll be able to work out. That's what healing is about. It's about really what is in your best and highest good. What are you working with in your team, whoever's with you, working with you that is in your best and highest good. But I know there was a couple people that I've talked to that felt like they could heal people, like literally make them walk. And, it happens. I mean, it's not that it doesn't happen, but people feel like I'm a healer and I'm going to go out and I'm going to heal this person.
But the healing doesn't happen in the medium. The healing happens in the patient's consciousness.
Exactly.
So, I mean, we know this in science with the placebo effect.
Mm-hmm.
People take a sugar pill
and,
I feel 100% better. I feel like my old self.
Right.
And so it isn't that the sugar pill had an effect. That the person taking the sugar pill thought themselves to be healthy, or thought that was going to work, and as a result they heal themselves.
But there are times when you're not going to be healed. So there's both sides of that spectrum. And you're right.
No,
it doesn't come from the healer. It comes from the person, and what their team, whatever is in their highest good, is what will happen with that person. We're just opening as healers, because I have a lot, whatever. We're just opening up I've done it and whatever. We're just opening up the channels for them to be receptive and open to whatever that is.
Exactly.
That's all we're doing. The awareness or the knowing is what we're helping with.
And that's, when they say the power of prayer, I mean, the power of prayer is just the reiteration that someone's going to be okay.
Yeah.
But you see, they're supported. The person receiving that prayer or being held in prayer, there is that belief that, okay, these people are praying, prayer works, I'm going to be healed. Now, you're right. There are times where things are beyond the pale, and it's going to be a rough battle. But that doesn't dismiss that there could be temporary relief. There could be emotional relief. There can be psychological relief from the illness or whatever it is. It's so. I think that. I don't know how we got onto this, but it goes back to the name of the show, isn't it? What do you believe and why do you believe it? Right?
Exactly. Yeah. But I do believe that healing is in the eye of the beholder, really, because
I agree.
What I might think is healing for you, you might not think that, or what is in your best and highest good, it may not be in that alignment as well. So it's really about, if I have this intention of, and I think it really messes with a lot of people, right? If I decide I'm going to be a Reiki master and I'm going to heal you of whatever is going on, and I'm healing this person and that person, and none of them are being healed to me, then I could be discouraged. When in reality, we don't know at what level they were healed. We're assuming or making a judgment that they weren't healed. When in essence, if we have the work, the heart, and the desire to heal people, we have to trust that the universe is healing them in the way that is right for them.
Yeah. I think about people who are chaplains, for instance, and how they need to present themselves day after day in people's sick beds, maybe a police state office or a police station where someone's been shot, one of the officers has been shot and killed. or a children's hospital where the child is terminal and the chaplain has to go and talk to the parents. And I think about that because, those are the most frail, the most vulnerable times for someone's spirit.
Yeah, it is.
When the physical isn't working. And when a chaplain comes in, they're not going to heal anyone. They don't express healing properties. A chaplain comes to say, what do you need? What does your soul need so that you can be at peace? And I mean, I'm sure there are tons of books out there and records of a chaplain coming in and praying with someone, and then they pass away or kind of drift away, or they don't really recover. But that person, that soul that is about to cross over, has that consolation and that recognition that their soul is being recognized. And yes, Janet, it can be the presence alone can be healing for them.
Absolutely.
And I think that someone asked earlier about how can we recognize the soul of each other.
Right.
I think that's the work that people need to do. Not necessarily being a chaplain, but just being there, because we all need something at some point.
Well, Jennifer, I think that that's a question that you have to ask in what you believe, because a lot of people believe a lot of different things. And I'm not going to make an opinion based on what happens. But from my experience, if you were to pass suddenly and you didn't see a chaplain, you're still going home. You're still going back to where you really actually, this, in my beliefs, this is the illusion. We are the puppeteers here, and we are already home with our higher selves. Our souls are already home. And home is not necessarily this thing in the sky. It's like a universe in this universe that we just have to be aware of, and we're not aware of. But we're just a human, but we are a soul. So we don't deviate from that. I feel like we just go home, and we don't need to have, for my beliefs, we don't need to have any kind of, special anything, eulogy or whatever.
Exactly. And kind of piggybacking off of that, and to go back to Janet's statement about the presence, it doesn't have to be an ordained minister or a chaplain that comforts or heals.
Right.
And, just because someone doesn't speak before they're passing to a chaplain or a minister or whatever, doesn't mean that their soul isn't healed. And, I think that who asked that question earlier? Was it Marilyn or Pam? Someone's talked about looking at each other. And I think that ultimately is one of the great goals of that loving, godlike consciousness, is that we can look at another person and they can have safe passage in our mind, where we can recognize that they are this beautiful thing that is known as a soul.
Yes.
And I think that, presence is such an important statement there, because there have been times where I have been grieving, or I have suffered loss or loss of jobs or whatever. And, I have had friends who have just sat there with me. They didn't say anything. They didn't do anything. They just sat there, and they may have listened if I said something. But that was far more meaningful than any cards or any meals or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was that presence. And isn't that what Job experienced with his friends that came after all of his mishaps? They just sat there with
Yeah.
him
Mm-hmm.
and let him experience what he
Mm-hmm.
was going through.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that that's very important. It's presence that is that if when we can start, like Bridget says, holding space, when we can
Mm-hmm.
show up, um, when we can show up for those. And Jennifer, I see your comment there. I'm so sorry to hear that. It must have been very traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
I won't go into all of that, but what I will say,
I will.
okay, I'll let you. But what I will say is that, when we can be there for others, that I think is one of the greatest godlike gifts. Because if we do believe
Mm-hmm.
that God is everywhere at
Mm-hmm.
all times, how much more impactful is it when we can be the physical presence of God for
Mm-hmm.
someone else when they need that
That
presence
is
in their
such
life?
an important statement. Such an important statement. And it's something that we don't really pay attention to. I think we make this life so real, so important, so heavy when it's really not that real. Well, it's important. I'm not saying it's not important, but it's just a small little part
It's a
of all that
small
we
fraction.
are. It really is. And I do want to go back to you, Jennifer. I'm very sorry for your loss. That is a terrible experience that you have gone through, and I'm very sorry about that. But what I would suggest to you, from my experience in mediumship, the what's happening on the other side is just pure unconditional love. There's no judgment and evil and darkness and sin and all of those. We all come from different religions and beliefs, and that's why this conversation is happening today, about challenging that. And what I would say to you is, sit with your daughter and connect with her the best that you can. And it will take you time, but you're going to find that your daughter is actually with you and loves you and fine and happy, and is doing what she does, and she's supportive. And so I really feel like you can connect with her and you can answer your own question, because when we pass over to the other side, there's nothing but pure unconditional love.
Yeah, I agree with
Religion
that.
is the one that makes it evil and dark
Yeah.
and hell and all of that. It's just not God. It's not the, universal consciousness.
And Jennifer, that comment in the middle, she wasn't able to ask for forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Again, to piggyback off of what Joanne was saying, forgiveness is really it's a human quality, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Absolutely.
somehow we feel we have to move on, we have to change our mind. But if that essence of God, the essence of the spirit world, is love, there is nothing. And this, we hear it. We, I don't want to get too churchy here, but we read it from the words of Paul that
Mm-hmm.
nothing in life or death will ever separate us from the love that God is.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what I hope that you'll really get from this, because we come here as a human being, which I preach about this. We come here to make mistakes. It's religion. It's the control of religions that try to make us feel like we have to fall into this certain box or this certain category, do certain things in certain ways. And it's all about control, where God is pure love. And so when we are living our life here as a human being, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to hurt people, but we don't have to ask forgiveness when we pass back home, because we've already done that through, most of the time, our own experience here, by beating ourselves up and making ourselves miserable. Or, we do it to ourselves better than
Mhm.
anybody can do it to us. So
Absolutely.
I feel like it's a belief system that, we have, but it's like, challenge that belief system. And that's why I asked you to sit with her, because that's going to show you exactly what's happening. And she will work with you if you just, again, it's like what we talked about. It's not about a meditation. It's not about, putting music on. It's, do whatever it takes for you to just sit in the quiet and ask or have the intention to blend with your daughter, blend with her soul. And your soul is already there with her. So you're going to become more aware of her energy around you. And then that will help you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad she's your diamond in the sky. Absolutely. It's just, I am very sorry for that. That's something that we, as mothers, fathers too, but because we bear our children, it's something we don't get over that very easily. So, but I do feel like you can definitely make light out of this. You can help other people that are going through this experience as well, from what your experience has been, and, help people and make it a positive for sure. Well, Alan, did we even cover what you came on to cover? I think
I don't know. Our conversations never really follow a checklist, do they?
No, we like to wander wherever the flow leads us.
But here's what I recently heard a podcast by Rob Bell is his name, and he wrote a book called What is the Bible? And he has a really witty sense of humor and very thought-provoking approach to it. And I was listening to a podcast of his, and he said that there are no tangents, and the tangents are supposed to be there. The tangents are what fill in the missing details or the missing context to us in order to make sense of this thing called life.
Yeah.
So even though we might not have followed any checklist, the tangents were supposed to be there. And,
absolutely.
And I do hope that it's helpful to those that are listening. And I do hope that it helps people to question and challenge their belief systems.
That's what Reach the Unlimited is all about, you guys. Challenge. It's not about right or wrong. That's the thing that's really important to understand, right? Our beliefs are our beliefs for whatever reason we have them, but we don't have to hold on to them just because we have them. So challenge them, ask the questions, read the books. When you're interested in something, find it out. Don't run from it because of lack of because of fear, because of, feeling like you're going to be punished in some way. And I'm here to tell you, I was raised a Catholic and I went into an Orthodox Jewish religion. I went back to the Old Testament, man. We did all the holidays, all the holy days, all the rituals, pretty much. We didn't kill animals. But I realized that was a chain around me. That was not helping me to really connect back to who I am and to connect with source. And that's what's important, to connect back to you, yourself, your higher self, and to connect back to the source. That's the important thing. Well, totally, you guys have been great. Thank you. Thank you for popping on. Thank you for
my pleasure.
All right, everybody. Oh, wait. Do you want to, you say a number, and the first person who puts the number gets a book. You have to be living in the United States. I'm not saying it to another country. Do you want to pick a number? Anybody who wants me to send them this book, I will sign it.
Okay. Want me to say it out loud or?
Oh, no. Do you have? No. You say it out loud and then they have to pick. Do you have a number? I'm sorry. I do
have a number.
Okay. Between 1 and 10? Or what did you go to?
I went 1 to 20.
Okay. We'll do 1 to 20. Anybody between 1 and 20 who wants me to send them this book, put it in the chat, and whoever gets it first, Alan will tell me, and you get the book. And nobody wants the book? Okay. One person wants the book. 33. That's not 1 to 20.
Well, that was before.
Only Jennifer? There's 11 people here. None of you want to pick between 1 and 20? Okay. We got 19, 14. I don't think the Canadian flag works. Oh, I get it now. Yeah, it does work, Jacqueline. I'm sorry. What part of, and it's still, I've sent stuff to Canada. It's very expensive. 18, 14, 19. Oh, should I send it to Canada? How expensive? What part of Canada do you live in? I'll check on Canadian rates, and next week I'll do it again. Okay. Okay, so we have 19, 14, and 18. I'm going to give it one more second, and then you'll pick whoever is the closest to that. All right. All right. Fine, Jacqueline. If you want to pay for the shipping, you can put a number in there.
Well, so far we do have a winner.
Okay, who's the winner?
The winner is number 14, Janet. You're our winner.
Janet.
Yay!
All right. Janet, just message me your address and I'll send this book out to you. And
Jacqueline's going to keep trying. Keep going. Keep going. You got 14 more letters to go. 14 more numbers.
Just message me on Facebook and I'll send it out to you. And Jacqueline, we'll try again next week.
All right, Joanne, I got a jet, but thank you so much for inviting me. This was really fun. I appreciated it.
Fun. All right. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye.